Hello and welcome to this video on interpreting my assessment brief, brought to you by the Study Advice team at the University of Reading. As you are starting a new academic year or a new term, it is very useful to put together first an assessment overview. How many assessed tasks or events will you have to complete and when? Once you have a clear configuration of all your deadlines in a planner or a calendar, then you will feel organized and in control. You will be able to make better decisions about your allocation of tasks and time management. Information about assessment on modules can be found on the relevant Blackboard course. There you should be able to find the assessment brief or instructions alongside other potential supporting material such as exemplars, relevant datasets, briefing session slides, top tips, frequently asked questions, and so on. Remember, you can always ask the module convener if you are unsure how to locate this information. After getting this overview, it is useful to work out how many different types of assessed tasks you've got. How many of these are tests or exams? How many are written assignments like essays, reports, reflections, or even longer project reports like dissertations? How many are oral assignments like presentations or interviews? Do you have any assignments with strong creative components, like art or architectural designs, for example? What about audiovisual assignments, like podcasts or posters? Do you have to submit any collective works in a portfolio? Do you have to do any group projects? Chances are that during your degree program, you will be asked to complete many diverse types of assessments. And this is why good understanding of the specific requirements each time is key for academic success. Given all the different shapes that an assignment can take, it becomes super important to obtain clarity about each new task. And the key tool to help you there is your assessment brief document. Although assessment briefs may sometimes look a bit different from module to module or even between different types of assessments, there are some key elements that your module conveners will provide each time. Knowing what to look for can help you use your brief effectively. So check for the title of the assignment, the percentage weighting, in other words, how much this assessment counts towards your final module mark. The learning outcomes will tell you how this is going to help you learn. And then the requirements or instructions. This is where you should identify keywords, command words, okay, to unpick what actions you need to take. Also, make sure you mark the submission deadline. Now, the marking criteria or rubrics are also important. They will tell you how your work will be assessed. And keep an eye out for additional information like datasets, relevant readings, okay, templates, exemplars, and so on that may become relevant. So check your upcoming assignment and see whether you can identify these key elements and where they're located in your brief. You can start highlighting some important parts. So next time you go into your brief, you will be able to easily pay attention to what's important. And we won't have to spend as long reading through the whole thing. And of course, think whether there is anything unclear or anything missing that you think you need before you start working. Here is a list of useful questions to ask yourself when reading your assessment brief. What is the purpose and intended audience of this assignment? This information can help you make key decisions, for example, about style, language, or the degree of detail you need to go into. What is the required format of my output? Do I know how it should look like? This information can help you make planning decisions. Specific instructions, for example, the length or word count, recommended headings, templates, and so on, all of it is there to help you, and being aware of these details early on can save you valuable time. And of course, the learning outcomes. In other words, think about what you will be learning when doing this work, what you will be improving on. And finally, the assessment criteria. This section will tell you what your marker will be thinking when assessing your work, which particular elements of it they will be focusing on. Understanding what is important can give you direction when preparing your work. Another useful way to prepare for an assessment is figuring out which cognitive skills are being assessed, which can be revealed through the assessment brief vocabulary. Bloom's taxonomy, represented in this picture as a pyramid, is a commonly used categorization of these cognitive skills. It starts from basic reproduction of knowledge, remembering information. It then moves up to understanding, being able to explain and discuss this knowledge. Then comes the ability to apply knowledge into new situations. Moving on, analysis comes next. That is, the ability to identify key elements and how these relate to each other, how things work together. Higher still, we find evaluation, the ability to use our analysis to make judgments and decisions about the things we know. And finally, at the top of this pyramid, we have the ability to create something new based on all the learning and thinking we have done before. The expectation is that at university, we are normally assessing above the apply level. The higher order thinking skills are the most valuable and will become progressively more important as you advance levels in your degree program. So next time you look at your assessment brief, try to identify the related vocabulary to each of these categories. Ask yourself, am I being tasked to analyze, to evaluate, to discuss, to compare, and so on? Think about the cognitive skills associated with the words you find in your brief and what these might entail. In addition to what to look for in an assessment brief, an equally important question is, when do I use the assessment brief? As we saw, it is the source of complex and layered information, so engagement with the assessment brief should be continuous as part of the overall assessment preparation process. Some information may be more relevant early on, and some may become important for you and your thinking and planning at a later stage. Let's take it step by step. At the beginning, we can make sure we get the practical information right. Making sure we have the correct due date, for example, is key for planning the work. Remember to plan alongside other assignments and allocate time to each accordingly. Other relevant questions at this stage may have to do with estimating how long things may take to complete, and making sure you have the leeway to make adjustments if needed. At the next step, it is time to go more in depth. This is still before you start work, a time to clarify any ambiguities or questions you may have. Ask yourself, do I have a clear picture of what I need to do and the output I'm asked to produce? Do I understand what a good example of this work would look like? If unsure, then read the brief again carefully, looking for clues. Anything you missed in your initial reading? Are there any additional companion materials where the module convener provides more details or advice? Check your marking criteria as well, which may be a different document. And of course, if you're still unclear, it is important to ask your questions. You can do that in person, for example in class or just after class, or via email or in any other relevant forum. Clarify questions before you begin your work, so you will be able to plan with clear purpose from the very beginning. Once you have clarity, you can start scheduling tasks. Break your overall task into small, manageable sections, okay, and formulate a to-do list. Include these manageable bits into your weekly timetable so you can anticipate how much time overall you will need to complete the assignment. Remember to allow some flexibility in your schedule and aim to be realistic with your weekly goals. It's okay if you need to revise your plan along the way. Once you get going with your assignment, do return to your brief regularly to make sure you're on the right track. Revisiting the assessment brief can help you stay on topic and avoid the risk of going into directions that may be interesting but not directly relevant to the task at hand. Check your progress and adjust your plan if needed. A key element to revisit as you work is the assessment criteria section. How is your work meeting each of these? Anything you need to make more explicit? And are there any formative feedback opportunities listed in the assessment information? Make sure you make the most of these opportunities. And if unsure at any point, you may also seek some developmental feedback from study advice. So, to recap, make sure you dedicate some time and attention to your assessment briefs. If you need clarifications, ask your questions early on. Take into account all the information provided, including the marking criteria or rubric. Use the assessment brief as a guide throughout your work. And of course, seek support if needed. On behalf of Study Advice, I wish you all the best with your assessment work.